Hi everyone, and welcome to another RavenDB webinar. In this webinar, we're going to answer a bunch of questions from users, and then I'm going to demo some new 2.5 features. I apologize for my voice. I have a little bit of a cold. Please feel free to ask questions or anything. I will answer all of them when I'm done with the prepared webinar content. So the first thing that we have to do, we have a question about how to handle maintenance tasks. And also just standard stuff. How I did something, how do I check this, and those two things. I think this is very valuable because those are the sort of things that you have to do all the time. So let's see. I just saved some user info on my website, did my save work? And let's do that. So the easiest thing to do, now we just created a new user. The easiest thing to do is just to look at this here. Sometimes this is not possible. You can't just look at this here. Maybe you have a big database. Maybe you have a lot of stuff. It's easiest if you go to collections and look at it here. Again, sometimes this is still not possible. What we are looking for is something like this. Select top 10 from users, update by blah, blah. So here is the easiest way of doing that. You go to here, add sort by last modify desk. Okay, and let's create another one and then we can see. Then we'll be able to see. Okay, so you see that this is the default ordering, which is basically undefined. Now we're going to define by this. And this is the equivalent of doing select star from users ordered by last update. This is using the Raven documents by entity name. This gives you several fields. It gives you the tag ID and it gives you the last modify, which is the date this document was modified. And it also gives you the tag. The tag is the Raven entity name, the collection this entity belongs to. So this is that. Does anyone have, okay, where is that? Does anyone have any questions about this? Going once, going twice, third time the charm, there are no question about select star. Okay, next topic. I need to change some string value, some field value from string to double. Okay, so let's go and actually create this. Location, something like this. Now, notice that this is currently a string. What I would like to do is change all of them from a string to a double. We do that using patch. In this case, what we're going is okay, I'm going to run the following command. Float this dot location. I'm going to run the following command. Take this location, parse it as a float, and then return, and then put it in this in the location property. I'm going to run it. I'm going to test that, and we can see that this properly worked. So I tested that, and this is important because this allows me to just run the test and see what's going on. I can also do things like this. Output, which will output this into this debug item right here. So this is a new feature in 2.5. This basically gives you a visibility inside the test UI to see what actually happened. So you can see that we have here the name of the user. Maybe we want to use it to give you the old value or something like that. And you can see that we turn the value right here from being a string to being a double. Now I'm going to run this code, patch all. And patch all basically means take this script and run it over all of the documents that are relevant. In this case, all of the documents for this specific collections, which is the user's collection. And we're done. This is how it works. Any questions about using patch to modify existing documents? One thing that I want to point out that everything that I'm doing here is also available to you as part of the API. The Studio is absolutely just a client application. It's nothing more than that. Okay, let's see the next question. Okay, so this is interesting. This is interesting because this is actually something that would be relatively hard to do. And the reason this would be relatively hard to do is that we don't really have the concept of, okay, let's just update the first 100 or any such sort of things. What we can do is find any sort of query that would work. For example, I might say that I want the user ID to be less than something. And if I want to do that, I can do that using a patch and by using an index. So in this case, I can say something like document ID, I don't know, something, and that would work. So in this case, what I could probably do is user ID so no, actually this, no, yeah, we need this. So what this says is based on the user ID, let's test that. Let's create user /101 and go in here. Oh, user slash or user slash or. So what we are basically says, all the users that have one number, 1 digit, or 2 digits, or 100, and this dot change. Let's patch all of them. Now you can see that we have change and change, and we don't have change here. Now it's important to understand this is not truly select top 100. This doesn't work like that. But for the most part, what you will be able to see is that this isn't really that important. It isn't really that important because for the most part, stuff like that is relatively rare. Usually when you want to do stuff like that, you're doing something very strange, and at that point you can do that just, okay, give me the first 100 records, and maybe I will do that using a bulk patch. This is when you actually give me all of the IDs of the document to patch or something like that. And I see that we have some questions, so let's try to answer them. Okay, we have lots of questions. That's good. Okay. How do you get all of the possible JS function that can be used for patching. So RavenDB supports the following stuff. All of the standard JS library, as well as the Lodash API. So if it's parse float, parse int, those sort of things, those are all part of the standard JavaScript library. We also support things like, this looks like this, for each, this dot groups, and then some sort of function here. So this is part of the Lodash JS. Low-JS. The documentation for that can be found Lodash. And there is some sort of a documentation site which I can't. Okay, here it is. So as you can see here, all of the options that we have, here is the for each that I mentioned, so on and so forth. Let's see other questions. Is there a way to run a patch against a subset of records? Yeah, so Roland, yeah, this is how you do it. You basically, instead of using a collection, you're using an index, and then you specify some sort of a query here to filter your patch operation. So Alexander, you probably so Alexander is asking, why is test disabled now? And the reason that test is disabled now is because I haven't anything selected. Test this on the selected document. That's all. This is a UI issue. And Sin is properly pointing out that the docs for Lodash are available in the surprisingly named lodash.com URL. Matt Johnson is asking, is there any mechanism to load some other JavaScript libraries or your own? No, there isn't. The reason for that is that for the most part, this is meant to be relatively simple stuff. This is not meant to be crazy complex, write your own 300,000 line store procedures or stuff like that. Another thing to note, we actively protect ourselves from harm, so you're limited to about 10,000 instructions. And this isn't actually 10,000 instructions, it's different based on the document size, but it is important to note that you can't just run and run and run there. If you have very big documents and want to run very complex operation, you may get a maximum instruction per patch exceeded or something like that. Okay, let's see what the next one is. Okay, so how many people named Justin made some purchases last week? So again, honestly, I'm just going to do it like this. Name Justin and last purchase date. (2013) 04 17 2013 04 25, something like that. And when you run this will give you everything that everyone who basically just that. And Justin, you misspelled your own name. Obviously, if you want to just higher than this, you can do it like that. And this would be basically the same thing as greater than or equal to this. Okay, 1 second, let's go back. We have a question. Hassan Mirza, I have 1.7 million documents that I want to use script patch with a simple instruction. Convert string to int. The 10,000K instruction limit is not global. This is per document. So you have maximum of 10,000 operations per document. So what I assume you mean is that you want to convert a single property like what I've seen. So like what I've done before. So we're talking about something like this. So let me just explain to you how this works. This has about 3 operations. We have this property access, this is one operation. We have method call, one operation. We have setter, one operation. So irregardless of how many documents you have, that's not a problem. Okay. Pablo, can you clarify what you mean? Do you want to, the question about queries, do you want to know about how do I use query with patching from the C# API? Okay. Custom queries, the properties are always case sensitive, yes. And right now, Pablo, I'm going to assume that what you meant is how do you run queries with patching through the client API. And in order to demonstrate that, I'm going to show this. Okay, so store.database command delete by index. Now here I need to select what index I want to run in. We don't allow to run a patch operation on dynamic indexes, so you have to actually give us the name. And probably the easiest way to handle that would be to do something like this. Let's say Raven/documents by entity name. Now, one way of doing that would be to write the string in here. This is workable, but this tends to require you to know what you're doing, and sometimes we change things between versions. So you really want to be able to use the actual API for that. So we're going to use an API for that, and this is what we're going to do. And okay, so as you can see, this will get translated into something like this. This is a bit more complex under the hood because it also needs to handle conversions and conventions, a whole bunch of stuff, but this is basically how it works. And sorry, this is delete by index. We want to actually update by index. When we use update by index, we have to also do this. Script a patch request. And now we have the ability to write the actual script. This dot location equal this dot something like that. Any questions so far? There be none, we will resume. Okay, so we answered this question. Let's look at the next one. How do I add a new field to all of the existing documents in a collection? Well, as you can imagine, we actually did that as a demo. A new item, like this. Patch all, and you just create the new item. And here you have it. And we have a question. Great. So, yeah. So we've seen that. Okay. Any additional questions about patching? Anything that you can think of, this is the time. Well, I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about questions and we'll post them. Okay, so we have a few. Let's see. Can patching be reverted? You can. I'm not sure that I understand the question. How would you want to revert a patching? So that depends on how you run it. If you run it, so let's think about for a second about the implication of running patches. There are several types of operations that we can do. So if you're running a patch on a single document, we can include that in an existing transaction by calling session.advanced.defer, at which point this will get executed along with every other operation when you call session.savechanges. Usually this doesn't matter because if you call something like update by index, we're going to do some work and parallelize the actual patch execution on the server side. That means that we may have multiple internal transactions going on at the same time. And the question now becomes, how do you roll back something like that and when? So if there is an error in the script itself or something like that, nothing will happen. If there is an error for some of those documents, then we will stop operations, but documents that already been successful may already have been committed. So the update by index and delete by index are not transactional by nature. If you think about it, let's say that you have a database with several million documents and you run a patch operation on that, you probably don't want that patch operation to take all of the transaction memory space, because that would interrupt other operation that the server is currently doing. You will see us doing something like that all over the place when we're actually very careful about the type of things that you're doing. Okay, and I think that we have some connection issues. Hopefully you can hear me properly. Let's see. Can you find out if the document does not exist if you try to patch a document using scripted patch? Would you ever be... Okay, so Troy, let's wait with that question. I have an answer for you. It's part of the scheduled discussion. I will touch on that. If you don't have, if I don't answer that, talk to me, then ping me in the questions after the webinar ends. Okay, more questions about scripted patching. More questions about standard maintenance tasks. Going once, going twice, and sold to the highest bidder. Okay, so let's talk here about replication and master with a lag. So this is a big question, but okay. So let's see. So we have server 1, we have server 2, and there is master replication between them. So it goes both ways. Now, let's imagine for a second what happened. Let's call it 1, call it 2. Now, we have set up things. So we have allow reads from secondaries and writes to secondaries. And that means that if the primary master is down, then we fail over both reads and writes to the secondary server. Now, the question here, how do I get both this behavior and load balancing? Now, a lot of people have issues with load balancing because they try to do this in hardware. And it doesn't actually quite work well in hardware because hardware doesn't have knowledge about how RavenDB works. And anyone who ever tried to do load balancing on a stateful website or something like that know how hard this can be. So by default, RavenDB does its own load balancing. The only thing that you need to do is you need to define failover to be the convention.failover behavior to be read from all servers. Okay, whatever. No. Okay, whatever. So we have a failover behavior allow reads from secondaries write to secondaries, and we owe that with failover behavior read from all servers. What does this mean in practice? It means that for reads, we are always going to do round robin from either one of those servers. Those will get load balancing for reads. Now the question becomes, how do we handle writes? More particularly, how do we avoid having conflicts on writes? Let's imagine that in this scenario, we would make a write to whatever server we feel like. That in turn would mean that I may have two threads by the same user, both modifying the same document, both of them going to different servers. In one thread, I might say x equal y, and another I'm going to say x equals z. And because both of them are going to go to different servers, there is no way for me to actually even get a concurrency exception. They go to different servers. What I will get after the fact is a conflict which I will have to resolve. So that's something that we want to avoid because we don't want the user, we don't want the developer to have to deal with conflicts unless something bad actually happens. Because of that, the way that RavenDB replication works, we always have a single write master. This is the primary server. This is the server that you initially connect to. And as long as it's up and running, we will always make write to that server. We also have so there is the method that is called here, which is force write to master. This isn't actually a real method. There is force read for master. Let's look at that. So this is how it looks like. And the question here is, why do we need that? Why do we need to force a read from the master? And excuse me 1 second, I'm afraid that I'm going to sneeze. Okay, so why do we need this option? And we need this option if we want to maintain optimistic concurrency. So again, thinking about the two server scenario, let's say that we want to make a read from the server and make a write to that server while ensuring that no one else snuck behind our back and wrote to that document. Now, if we have read from our servers, we may be reading from the secondary server, but writing to the primary server. At that point, we are actually guaranteed that the document will not have the same e-tag. We actually had a bug in RavenDB's own code using the high-low under that specific scenario, where sometimes we would get confused and basically get stuck in a loop because of that. So what we are actually doing here, we're saying, okay, we're forcing you to read from the primary server, and that way we'll ensure that the tag is going to be the same, assuming that no one came back and changed that. So far, so good. Now, in the same vein, what happened with failover? And the answer is that with failover, nothing actually changed. Force read for master basically just means force read for master if that master is available. Under the behavior that we have here with allow reads and write from secondaries, what this means is that we would basically fail over to the secondary and then fail over again when the times come to do the actual write. So basically you get the behavior that you want, both on read and write time. It's just important to understand why we do that behavior, why we have a force read for master. Questions about this? Okay, it appears that we don't have any questions about this. Let's see what else we have. Okay, this is where we get to the actual fun stuff. So we have new features to demo. And this is new 2.5 features. Most important of them is probably this one. Oh, sorry. Users from you in docs.users. u.name. Okay. Sorry again. So now you can see this is a feature that has been requested many, many times. The ability to actually prioritize an index. In particular, we have people that really want to say, oh, this is an index that I don't care about. I'm going to make it idle, or I just want it to be disabled. Don't bother to do anything about it. The levels that we have is normal, treated normally, obviously. Idle is index this on idle time. Abandon, index this on idle time only if we're really, really idle. If there's been a idle time and there's been several hours since the last time we actually checked this index. Disable obviously means don't index this at all. Now, the basic property that we have to understand is that this is mostly there to manage dynamic indexes, because this is how we handle the retirement of dynamic indexes, but this is also available to you. And you can manage that however you like. Take into account that contrary to expectation, if you have if you try to prioritize your indexes, you may actually make things worse. Why would you make things worse? Because think about the situation that you may have. Let's say that you have two indexes, and you mark one of them is idle. What this means is that as long as there is work for the database, only the normal index will be operational. The moment that there is some idle time, this is where we are going to start to try and catch up. And that means that during idle time, the system is actually going to have a backlog of stuff to try to go through. And that means that it may be the case that it's actually cheaper for us to re-index things on the fly, so to index things as they come along, instead of effectively having to index things twice, once on the first time and the second time during idle time. This is because by far the most expensive things about indexing is loading the data from disk and writing the index results. So this is just something that I want you to think about. Another very important feature that we have with regards to indexing is this, guys. And this is called index locking. Index locking is a feature that we introduced to help operations. And what's the point of this feature? The point of this feature is that there are times when what you actually want to do is, let's say that you're in production. And in production, you discover that you have some sort of a problem. For example, you may have have a typo in the index, or you may realize that you need to specify sort order, or any of those sort of things. What you want to do is to be able to take that document, that index, and change that. And this is manual change, and you do that, and everything is fine. But usually in RavenDB application, we have the ability to, we usually have in the start of the application, index create indexes. What this does in turn, obviously, is create indexes. Now, this is no-op if there are no differences between the indexes that are in the application and indexes that are in the database. But if you just made that change, well, obviously you know what's going to happen. As soon as your application restarts, it's going to reset the index to its native state, and you're basically at the exact same state, except that this may happen at 2 a.m. This will actually usually happen at 2 a.m. because this is when the system have idle time to restart your application. So what we have here is 3 modes. Unlocked is the default mode. Locked ignore means that when you try to make changes to the index, we're going to say, okay, this has been successful. So let's see this now. I'm going to change that, and you see, you can't make a change. If you will try, what will happen is that we say this operation has been successful, but we won't actually change the index. And we can also have previously we did lock ignore. Now we change that to be lock error. And if we do lock error, what will happen is that blah, blah, blah. If we do lock errors, this is where we'll actually get a physical error when we try to update the index. So this is basically your own choice. Usually what I would expect is that you would set the lock mode to be lock ignore if you make changes in production. This way your application can continue operate even though it attempts to recreate the index in its old state. Questions so far? Going once, going twice, and so on. Okay. Now we have new JS features. Oh, we have a question actually. Okay, Pavlo, I'm waiting. Okay, about the error, I assume you're talking about the lock error mode, in which case when you try to modify an index that has been locked with lock error, then we will throw an exception, say that the index cannot be modified because it has been locked. Yes. This is all at runtime. Remember, the intent of this feature is to allow administrator to make changes in production for indexes without having the user overwrite them, without having your application overwrite them by default. Okay, so now let's talk about new JS features. So, you know what? we have this location. What I realized is that I don't actually want this to be inside the user's document for whatever reason. I want it to be in a separate document. So up until now, I would have to go and write a code to do this. What I can do now is this. Okay, you see document ID, doc metadata. So location. So what this should do is, what this should do, this should create, and obviously, okay. So as you can see, this deleted those guys. And if I go here, oops. Sorry, this is how I should do that. I think. Let's test this. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, one second. This is interesting. Pretty sure that I do give you the here we go. And here we go. Whole bunch of stuff we don't care about. We call to JSON in here. And it appears that we don't actually give you that value. Interesting. So we used to. Okay, this is actually something that I'm going to fix right now, because I think that we do want to have the document ID, and we're going to do that. Good. Sorry, those sort of things really annoys me. Okay. Great. Oh no, sorry. So what I did right now, I exposed document ID for the user. And this is the root document ID that I'm using, and this, yeah, okay, good. Now that I have this, I can properly let's say new item. And this dot new item. Okay. And now what we're going to see, Okay, so this should have worked. Didn't I press OK? Am I missing something? Let's try it like this. Okay, so something funky is going on. I won't waste more of your time trying to figure it out. Probably this is me. Let's try this one last time. So that should have worked, but didn't. I'm not sure why, and I'm not going to waste more of your time trying to figure that one out. But Troy, basically, to answer your previous question, you have load document to test if a document exists, and put document to create it if it is or does not. Note that you also have input document. You also have the ability to specify the document ID, the doc, and the metadata as well. So you can basically do whatever you want in here. And I'm really annoyed about this right now. Let me try. Okay. No viable alternative. So I have some sort of stupid. Sorry, guys. And here we go. Sorry, I had a syntax error and that caught me off guard. Now let's do it for everything. Now we have this properly, as it should. And now you can see how I created the new item. And we have questions. Yes, Khalid, thank you. Should have looked at the questions earlier. Any additional questions about patching or the new JS features? Going once, going twice, and discard, yeah. Okay, guys, so what I'm going to show you now is a very, very sneak peek. The basic idea is that RavenDB currently have a minor problem. there are a set of queries that it can't easily answer. And those set of queries, the easiest way to demonstrate them would be comment. No, here is a good one. Select comments from users. Well, something like this. Now, this is how to do in RavenDB because this would basically require us to modify modify the way that we group by and modify the source data for the computation. In order to handle this, we now have the following options. Let's see. So now what we want to do is facet on and obviously we need, I don't know, age. Okay, so this is the current syntax. This basically says, okay, we have a query. Give me all of the users that have the tag RavenDB in them. The facet that we are working on is age. This is effectively a group by. I don't want to call it a group by because then we would have to do stuff that we can't really do later on. Like, okay, I want to group by age and stuff like that. So this is the current temporary API. I would dearly love to have something better. This is what we have right now. And basically what this gives us is for all of the users who have RavenDB in them, give me the sum of their tags length grouped by age. And we can get that from, result and age and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is new. This is literally just this week we have been finishing, we have done the finishing touch on this implementation. I really like this feature. We haven't done enough perf testing to really tell you how it works, but I have a good feeling about this. And question about this. By the way, don't worry, we will have way better demonstration about this probably in the next webinar that we do. Yes, so you can still apply paging. Currently the API doesn't support it, but the underlying infrastructure does. And yes, you can do facets based on range. So you can say, I don't know how you would do it in here. So again, early on API, but you would be able to do something like age greater than 10 and something like this. And this would also work. More questions? Yes. So yes, so I want to know what my cells between a dynamic range. Is that possible? Yes, yes, yes. This is specifically why we have this feature, to allow you to handle that sort of queries without resorting to reporting database. And as you can see, Troy, we don't define a facet setup for this. This actually uses the new ability to send the facets to the server as part of the query itself. However, you can define the facets as a facets document in the DB as well, and this will also work. More questions? As I mentioned, sneak peek, wait for more on next week. And Matt, thank you. I agree. I think this really solves a huge gap in what we can do. Khalid, I don't know what the performance is. We have run currently with just trying to get it right from point of implementation and API. And what we would like to do later on is then run off the performances and whatnot. I have a good feeling about it. Troy, regarding the time frames, 2.5 currently 4th of June, 3.0 4th of January. Okay, so those are the current timeframes. We are currently completing the last big features that will go into 2.5. After that, we're going to go into a stabilization period, and probably even starting in basically mid-May, we're going to start working on Trio. Any final questions? And Matt, we're going to do something with LevelDB in Trio. Yes, that's all I can say without that's all I can say right now. Okay, so this has been another RavenDB webinar. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy it, and we probably have one in a week or two. Bye-bye, guys. Okay, seriously, I'm trying to say bye-bye. Khalid, here are your graphs. Seriously? Okay, so if you go to statistics, you will see the graph in the indexes, and it appears that we have a bug in this version. Okay, I know what's happened here, but that's okay. Okay, in your version, if you go to statistics, you will see that. Bye, guys.